This is Ashley Schultz interviewing John Scarfo. We are at Perry Junior High School, and it is 2:55 p.m. on March 27th, 2009. What is your full name?
John Scarfo.
When and where were you born?
December 9th, 1925, in Utica, New York.
What was your pre-war education?
I was third year in high school when I left.
What was your pre-war occupation, if you had one?
I used to be a plater. I used to plate cars, emblems on cars and refrigerators.
How did you hear about Pearl Harbor?
Never knew about Pearl Harbor when they landed. Nobody seemed to know about Pearl Harbor. I asked everybody, where's Pearl Harbor? Nobody seemed to know where it was until later on it came out.
Where were you when you heard about it?
It was in front of my house.
What was your reaction?
Well, I just thought it was bad. Thought it was real bad, but we still didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. At that time, we didn't have television. We were just on the radio.
When did you enter service?
I ran away from home because I had brothers in the service. My mother and father wouldn't sign for me, so I ran away from home. I forged everything, even the Notary Public seal, but I got caught. But they didn't do nothing with me because I didn't do it to make any money, sign checks. You know, it was patriotic, so they let me stay in. I was only 17 years old.
What was your branch of service?
U.S. Marines.
Where did you receive your basic training?
In Paris Island.
What were your feelings and experiences about it?
What's that?
What were your feelings and experiences about it?
It was really tough. In fact, a lot of the boys were, I think I even cried, because that's how tough it was. They were really, really mean to us. We thought it was being mean, but they wanted you to be good. But that's what it was. They call you names. They make you do different things that you never heard of things doing before. But that was the training.
What was your specific training?
With a rifle.
What were your general duties, skills, or rating?
I was a corporal. I used a BAR, it's an automatic weapon.
Did you perform any unusual service or duties?
No.
What was your unit or ship assignment?
I was never on a ship until we went overseas. We always trained in the field, infantry.
What theater, campaigns, or locations of action were you in?
Iwo Jima. We went to Iwo Jima, and that's where I got wounded. After I got wounded, I had to spend 9 months in the hospital. Then I got a discharge.
What battles were you in?
Iwo Jima battle, the only one.
When were you first under fire?
February the 19th. I was on the first wave. That's when we landed. That's on the bottom of the mountain. But I didn't have to climb the mountain. I stayed on the bottom of the mountain. There was an airfield. We were supposed to capture the airfield.
How did you feel about combat?
Well, we were 17 years old. We didn't think too much about it. It was a job to do.
Did you receive any injuries, wounds, or illness?
Yeah, I was wounded March the 8th. And I was wounded pretty bad. And a few boys helped me. They got wounded. And I felt bad that they got wounded. But we're all friends. Their pictures are in this book. And I always tell them today, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be drawing a pension.
Did you receive any medals or citations?
Just a Purple Heart and regular medals.
What did you receive them for? What did you receive the awards?
Nothing for bravery. It was just medals that they give you for being there.
How did you keep in touch with those at home?
Not too much because you didn't write. We were on the field all the time.
What was daily life like?
Over there, it was a volcano island. Very, very, all soot. And at night, when you dug a hole, you had to dig a big hole because if you dug a small hole, it would cave in. And you had to have a poncho to sleep on or sit on it because the lava dust, sulfur, It used to burn you know, and it stunk. But everybody stunk, so you didn't mind it.
What was the food like?
We had cans, K-rations, all canned stuff, beans, stuff like that. No hot food.
How did your equipment compare to the enemy's?
We had good equipment. We had very good equipment at that time. Nowadays, it's a lot different. My weapon was, you shoot it, you just pull the trigger, it was automatically, you get 5 or 6 shots off at one time, you know. It was like a machine gun. It was a heavy gun, very heavy.
What was your unit like?
I had a good bunch of guys, very good guys. They were all good Marines. They were funny. They laughed at a lot of things. We had a good times over there. We made fun at each other all the time. To this day, I still make fun at them.
How were your officers?
Very, very good. Very, very good. One of my officers got the Congressional Medal of Honor, and after all these, he died over there. I was with him and he died. And 4 years ago, they called me to go to Washington, when he got his medal.
Did you know anyone in your unit before you joined?
No, they were all strangers.
What is the funniest or most inspiring thing you experienced during your service?
Well, we make fun at everybody. I have a friend lost both of his legs, and we go to the reunion. He never misses a reunion. You don't have no legs, and every time we go, I always tell him, do me a favor, dance with my wife, you know. We kid each other, have a lot of fun, you know. And one time, we went to New York. We went to his room, and at that time, this was a good many years ago, in the 50s, we used to bring our own bottle and drink in the room, get drunk and feeling good. And he used to make us, when we used to go to our own room, he used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, to wake us up. We were still sleeping. And the next night, the guy says, we're going to do something different. He had wooden legs. So they took us wooden legs away from him when we went. So in the morning, when we got up at 9 o'clock, we went to his room. He was just sitting there with no legs, waiting for us to come in. We grabbed his legs.
What person will you remember best from your service and why?
I made the best people there and their friends. Even after the service, I was walking down the street. It was Christmas Eve. I was in California, walking down the street, and this car pulled up. And these 2 people were in the car. I says, lady, we don't know nothing about Los Angeles, so we can't give you no directions. She says, no. So we have a son in Europe, and we miss him. Would you like to have Christmas with us? So he took us to his home, had Christmas, he made us sleep there, and he took us back the next day. And I thought that was the nicest thing I witnessed from people, how they treated us. They treated us good. I think they treated us better than they did the Vietnam guys, you know, some of those people. We were really treated good. And every place we went, we hitchhiked, and the cars always picked us up, always picked us up.
What experience left the greatest impression on you?
The relationship with all my friends. To this day, they call us. And March the 8th, I stay home that day because they all call. The ones that died, their wives call, because that's the date. They all got wounded. We all got wounded together. I got wounded first. They got wounded helping me. And we call that our anniversary.
How do you feel about your military experiences?
I recommend it to everybody, except for the war part of it.
What did you do when you arrived home?
Well, when I got home, all my friends started coming home to see me, because some of them got home before I did, because I spent too much time in the hospital. But they all came over, we had parties, we had good times. And there's one thing we did. To this day, I go to my reunions every year, it's in a different state. There isn't one Marine we sat down with, bragged how many guys he shot. Never talked about who you shot or anything. You know, we laugh about it, you know, and it's fun. Not one of them ever says how many Marines, how many Japs they shot. Not one of them talked about it. And it was really nice to hear people talk like that, you know.
What occupation did you have after the war?
I went back to be a plater again. Then the company was from New Hartford, the American Emblem Company. They moved out. They were at the bridge where there's a crossover bridge, city line. And after that, I had to get another job. So I didn't know nothing about baking. And this guy says, I need a baker. Go down and see him. I needed a job because I was married. So I went down and see him. He said, what do you know about baking? That was a Florentine pastry shop. And I said, I don't know nothing about baking. He says, you're hired. I said, you hired me and I don't know nothing about baking? He said, yeah. I said, okay. We shook hands. He was a nice guy. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Give me 1 week trial. If I don't like it, I'll leave. And if you don't like me, you tell me to leave. After 3 days, he said, please don't leave me. I caught on fast. And I said, why did you hire me and I don't know nothing about baking? He said, everybody I hire was a baker. And we do special kind of baking. A lot of these people worked at Danny Donuts and stuff like that. They fried a lot. And down in Florentine, you don't do no frying. Everything was made from scratch, nothing from the box. And that's why I stayed there. I stayed there almost 25 years. Then I retired. And I said, I'm not going to work no more. Between my pension, Social Security, and I didn't feel too good. Then I went home and 2 young kids come up to see me. They're Knoll brothers. They own the Cafe Cannoli. They asked me to work for them, to help them, to start off. And I did. And I can't believe 2 kids conned me to go to work, to go to work for them. And I've been there ever since. But now I retired. I don't know how many times I retired. And every once in a while they get in trouble. It's so busy, they call me back. In fact, just this morning alone, he called, he said, Johnny, you got to help me next week. We got to make special bread, cassades for Easter. It's a big thing. And him and I always did it. And so I said, okay, I'll help you next week. They're good boys.
How did your military experience change or influence your life?
I didn't become a wise guy. I became more or less a comedian. I enjoyed people. I had fun with people. I razzed people. I know who to razz. I don't razz. You see how I talk to those boys out there? The guy with no legs, things like that. And then I became a roast master. You know what that is? Then I started roasting people. And then it never ended. And then I roasted a guy, Mayor Doolin. I roasted him. I roasted a man called Victor Peretta. There was 500 people there at that night, and I never believed there was going to be that many people. And I was a little shaky and everything. But Victor Peretta was a great man. He did an awful lot for the kids, Sunshine, the camps, and all that stuff, White Lake. So it was an honor for me to be a roast master for him. So I did quite a few people, and then after, I had to stop it for a while. But I like to razz people, and people razz me. They're not soreheads.
Don't worry about it.
How was your life different than your life at home?
I came home as a normal fellow, went back to work, didn't make much money, because we were all poor at that time. We weren't extravagant like the kids are today. When we went to school, we all walked. Now kids have cars going to school, but they have to have buses because the schools are so far out. In Utica and New Hartford, there were schools, everybody walked to schools in those days because they were all in our neighborhoods. Now the schools are so far out, you have to take a bus.
What was your daily life like while you were on the ship?
He wasn't
On the ship, I used to be,
Not on the ship.
Wait, were you on the ship the whole time? No, you were on land a lot of time training.
Yeah, but from Hawaii,
Oh, yeah,
from Hawaii to Iwo Jima, I was on a ship 26 days.
that's right.
And I'll tell you, I was sick, seasick, a lot of that time. A lot of that time, I was seasick. A lot of guys were seasick. I was on a very small boat.
Can you expand on what happened at the Battle of Iwo Jima?
Say that again?
Can you expand on what happened at the Battle of Iwo Jima?
Well, when we got there, we didn't see too many Japs right away because they were all on their caves. And when the Navy bombed the mountain, you could see them bombing, the big blast and everything. It didn't hurt. They didn't kill many guys because they were underneath the ground. They had a city underneath the ground, caves. And for an example, one time, guys were getting shot in the back. And we wouldn't shoot our own men in the back. And then they found out why. They had like sewers. They used to come up, shoot, and go back in the hole again. That's why we didn't know why our men were getting shot in the back.
How did others react when they were wounded?
They all act the same. They all talked about their mothers, you know. Some were happy, they're going home, you know. And some were so bad, you didn't know what's going to happen to them. But I knew I was going home, but it was just on my legs. But these other guys that got hit in the head, they were really, really bad.
Can you tell us about your friend Ira Hayes?
Ira Hayes was an Indian. And lots of times they wouldn't give him beer because he was an Indian. In those days, that's how it was. In fact, in those days, if you were colored down south, you had your own water fountain. If you went to a railroad station, it was cut in half. It says white and colored. The water fountains on the street were white and colored. You know, they were treated real, real bad. They couldn't go into a coffee shop with white people. Of course, you know how it was on a bus. We got on a bus, we always had to sit in the front, the colored sat in the back. We used to laugh about it because the colored sat in the back. Sometimes the bus was so crowded, I had to stand up. We made jokes on that all the time.
What was your friend Ira Hayes known for?
He was just a quiet guy. He didn't have much of a family life. He came from a poor Indian family and hardly ever wrote home and hardly ever wrote or ever received letters. He was a very quiet guy, a very nice guy, and when you talked to him, you had to pull things out of his mouth because he wasn't a talkative guy. But we got along good because I used to give him beer because other guys did the same thing.
Why did you want to enlist?
Because all my friends were a little older than me. They all got drafted, but 6 months to go in high school, so they gave them 6 months of permit to graduate, and then they had to go in the service being drafted. Most of my friends all got drafted, but I wasn't going to stay home alone. And they were my best friends, so that's when I left. And when I ran away from home, I didn't have Samson luggage. I had a little bag from Main Piece grocery store. I put shorts, socks, a couple undershirts, a pair of shoes, and that's when I left. Nowadays, the kids run home, their father gives them a credit card, a car. They don't want them to come back, I guess.
I see you brought a photo album with you. Can you talk about some of the things from it?
Oh, yes. See, a lot of people don't know this difference between a Banzai charge. Banzai charge is when the Japs had no feeling. They used to drink a lot, and they used to get drunk, and then they charge, because their lives didn't mean nothing. And to be in the service, the Japs were told to be a Marine or a soldier, you have to kill your family to get in. That's their propaganda. And the Japs, when they used to Banzai charge, they were taught not to become prisoners. And they used to kill themselves. In fact, I got a picture here where 6 guys are in a hole. They didn't want to surrender. They blew themselves up, because that's how they were. But That's what they believe in, not to become a prisoner. And at the end of the island where I was, I saw them, they used to jump off the cliffs in the water because they didn't want to become a prisoner. We took very few prisoners over there.
What other stories would you like to share?
Well, there's a funny story I like to tell you. There was a guy in my outfit, his name was Ulysses Stange. His initials were U.S. He slept in my tent. He was a nice kid. And he was from the farm. And I always had him underneath my wing. And I used to get in a lot of trouble because inspection, this is before Iwo Jima, he didn't have no initials on his clothes. And I used to get hollered at because he was under me. I was his corporal. You got to put initials on your clothes. He says, I have initials under my clothes. Here's my rifle, U.S. caliber. Because everything was U.S., he thought those were his initials. But we were on the front line, and really on the front line, and at night before it got dark, they passed the word around on the front line, psst, tonight the password is trees, because you're supposed to shoot anybody in front of you, because nobody's supposed to be in front of us. But if I walk back, the password was trees. They say, who are you? And you tell them trees. Well, Stange says trees is the password. Now what is it? Apple tree, pear tree, plum tree, or elm tree, Christmas tree, oak tree? I had nothing to say. The next night, the password was presidents. I said, tonight the password is president. I passed it down to the other guys. He said, Johnny, I only know a few presidents. Roosevelt, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. I said, if they call, because if they said President Taft, he would have shot him. And I was worried about him. But he was a funny guy, that's how he was. We had a lot of funny things on the front line. You had to have morale. That means a big thing. You know? And there was one guy, he was from Long Island. His name was Murphy. Every time he ate, he wouldn't eat with nobody. He'd jump in my hole and eat with me. And the guy just said, why does Murphy want to eat with you? You get the same food they get out of the can or out of the box. I said, well, I'll tell you later. So he used to eat and then go. Then eat again. He used to come in my hole. This guy liked black pepper. Black pepper. And he thinks I had it. Well, I used to put my hand down in the lava dust, take a little pinch, and put lava dust on his food. And he ate it. And never died, never got sick. But it was black pepper. He had an obsession for black pepper. Then I told the boys, if he eats with you, give him a little lava dust. He's happy. And that's what happened. And to this day, when we talk, he always thanks me for the black pepper. He says, how come you always had black pepper and hot pepper? Because I always had hot peppers, the hot pepper in the bottle. But he had an obsession with black pepper. And what are you going to do? You can't do nothing about it. You know? And he loved it, that's all. And another guy, he just died recently, a couple months ago. He had a Silver Star. When we used to make a charge, we used to be behind a tank. And behind the tank is a telephone. And you tell the guy in the tank, shoot to the left. There's a pillbox. But the phone didn't work. So he used to jump on the tank and holler to the left. But Japs could see him and they would shoot at him. And you could see the bullets get off the tank. And he jumped down. He was lucky, never got hit. Next little while later, he jumped on the tank again. Do the same thing. Never got hit. Never got hit. And one of the guys told him, says, if you jump on that tank once more, I'm going to shoot you. Well, the third time he jumped on the tank, he got hit. We got him. We never gave it a thought. And then to the reunions, he always used to say, Johnny, which one of the guys shot me? He still thinks one of the guys shot him. For years and years, we talked. He always said, Johnny, put his arms around me and say, who shot me? You know? And he always thought somebody shot him, but it wasn't. You know, nobody would shoot him. We always had a laugh about it. And he just died a couple months ago. Yeah. So we had our good times, humor times and everything, but what are you going to do? And with the guy with the bad no legs, just laugh at him, and he took us a joke, never bitter, you know, and that's it. There was a couple of guys that came out were really, really bitter, you know, but they didn't even live too long. They never wanted to come to the reunions. They never wanted to talk about it, and I think that's what did it. They held it in, you know. But you have to make fun out of everybody, you know. What are you going to do?
You were enlisted for 3.5 years. Tell me about your daily life when you weren't in battle.
We all did the same thing, lived in a foxhole. Once in a while, you're always on the front line, and every once in a while they relieve you. They said, go back and get some hot chow. The Army came, they put kitchens up. They put kitchens up there. You used to go back there and have a hot meal, hot coffee and stuff like that. But that wasn't too often though. And then they give you, after you ate, they give you a couple boxes of rations. You lived on rations, you were happy. They were good rations, pork and beans, stuff like that. Yeah. But everybody had the same thing. And once in a while somebody come along and give you a banana that they took off the ship, they give you a fruit or something.
Where were you when you heard about the end of the war, and how did you feel?
I was in the hospital. When I was in the hospital, we came over, they had radio that President Roosevelt died. President Roosevelt died. He was the president at that time. And President Truman was the vice president. He took over afterwards. And I'll tell you, everybody cried. You know, everybody cried when President Roosevelt died. I was in the hospital.
During war, was segregation a problem?
No, we didn't believe in that, but there was though, and they had the colored Marines. They used to run up and give you your ammunition and throw you some food, and for some reason they never put African. They used to call them colored people before, or African Americans. They never put them on the front line at that time, for some reason, but they did their job by giving us ammunition. Because lots of times we ran out of ammunition, we didn't have to get out of our holes, go back and get it. They always carried it for us, you know. So they deserve a lot of credit.
Can you tell us about the flag you brought with you?
It was March the 7th, the day before I got wounded. It was a very dark night. We were dug in for the night, and they had a Banzai charge. A Banzai charge is when the Japs drink a lot. It's at the end of the island. They charge. They don't care about their lives. And we were in a hole. My friend and I, he was from Fresno, California. Him and I were together, and he was looking out. And I was sitting down in a hole. He was watching. We have turns. Sometimes you sleep for an hour, then he wake you up. You change off. It was real dark that night. They had a Banzai charge. They didn't see our hole because it was so dark. It was hidden. They fell in our hole. Of course, we had to shoot them. We had to, that's the way it was. In the morning, there was a lot of dead Japs in front of our holes. There was 2 in our hole. So I said, Milo, they can't stay here tonight. We threw them out. We put them on a hole, and they were on the rim of the hole. And when it got light, it was okay. There was no action. So I searched them. He searched one, and I searched the other one. I found this flag. It's an American flag with the Sacred Heart on it. So for him to get this flag, he had to kill somebody, searched them, and took this flag from somebody. And I think it was a chaplain, because who would have his flag? Then I got home, I had pictures made, and nobody knew where this flag came from. They'd never seen it, never heard of it. Well, I took his money, I took his dog tags, I took this flag, I took campaign ribbons from him that belonged to the GIs, and I kept them for a long time. After the war, we had a reunion in Arizona. This friend Milo from Fresno, California, he came, and we talked about old times. And he was very, very rich, Milo, but he was down to earth and everything. He brought his sister and his mother to the reunion. And we talked and everything. I says, Milo, I got to tell you something. You remember that night that we had the Banzai charge, and I took the stuff from him? See, he didn't know about the flag. I just stuck everything in my pocket. And I showed him the flag. I said, remember that night? I said, I took a lot of money from this Jap. Took his dog tags. I took a flag. And I never gave you any money. He said, it's all right, Johnny. I took a lot of money off the other guy, and I didn't give you any either. So we laugh about it, you know? And that's the way it was. And nobody to this day knows where this flag come from. So I treasure it, you know? But it's got to come from a chaplain.
Can we, she's just gonna hold it up into the camera. Take it and put it in.
Oh, right.
That's really cool.
Ah, yep.
Now, where would you think that flag come from?
I would think the same thing, because it's got the Sacred Heart on it.
You
I
see,
don't
when the
think
priest
it's-
came around, are you Catholic? Catholic?
Not Catholic, Protestant.
Yeah, I'm a Catholic.
Well, in those days, oh, it's still on?
Yeah, do you want me to turn it off?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you turn it off?